Let's have a talk about fortified lines, pre-positioned defensive lines, forts. And Lord knows that Europe is full of them, even those you can no longer see today. Now you've all, of course, heard of the Maginot Line, and I have done mine to take you through the massive forts constructed on France's border with Germany. Now, the Maginot Line certainly is something really special, given how large and complex the forts were. And one of the main reasons were the great loss of life the French had suffered during the First World War, and they needed a defensive line which could protect their frontier in fewer numbers. Although, it is interesting that ever since von Clausewitz wrote The Way of War, which became the Bible for all Europe's militaries for centuries, he made it clear that the way to break through your enemy was through the Schwerpunkt, assembly of your strongest assets in one place, and break through in force. Clausewitz being Prussian, of course this was the lessons the German-speaking armies had most certainly learned and adopted. And the Germans and Prussians had for centuries invaded France through Belgium, as it was the shortest and fastest way past Sedan in towards Paris, just as they did in 1870 when the French armies were massed to the south and the Prussians, of course, to the north, and in 1914 when the German army overran Belgian forces and headed straight through Sedan, and only 800,000 Allied lives later were they actually halted. But it was a good effort and should have given food for thought. Now, since the Germans had always gone through the Ardennes, past Sedan, Belgium, the French, of course, built their defenses to the south of both because the Germans could not possibly be suspected of going that way again. Now, of course, the Germans and their inner Prussian did not feel it was all entirely over after World War I, and they began to make plans to ensure their safety. And they made surveys and studies for the West Wall fortifications facing the French. And slowly, into the late 1920s, they began constructing defensive lines there. Not that there is an offensive line. But the Germans, they also had old memories of being invaded from the east themselves. During the 7-Year War, the Germans, Prussians, had Berlin raided by the Russians and Pomerania raided by the Swedes and the Russians alike several times. Just like the fighting to liberate Kostryn from the Russians coming through Polish territory in 1858. So the Germans in 1920s were quite well aware that the Russian communists and maybe even the Poles might take advantage of a weakened Germany and opt for a replay. So first they began by designing fortified lines there as well. Obviously, the direct route to Berlin had to be closed and defended, therefore the Ostwall, oder Wadeborgen, and Pomerania. Pomeranian Wall then defend the former Pommern, now German, and Poland. The construction began before 1933, but after Hitler came to power, the construction of defenses and bunkers really took shape. But this was before the concept of Regelbauten. Thus, they're somewhat different. The design and concepts that was implemented here, heavier rebar and more steel domes and doors, were available before the war began. And the construction had begun very much in secrecy on all fronts. Many bunkers and defensive positions were designed into buildings, rock walls, cemeteries, farmhouses, or mills. It was really well use of urban camouflage here. And later, real large bunkers were constructed, of course, and I found on the Pomeranian Wall an ungodly amount of pack garages. Oh well. As we begin, over several episodes, to dissect the Pommern Wall, or Pommernstellung, we should start with taking a look at how one of these Muppets functioned. And to this end, a group of wonderful Polish volunteers have carefully reconstructed and salvaged and put together a large B-Werks and gloriously filled it with things you will never see anywhere else. So yay them. Now let's start breaking it down before we go to the broken down.
Interesting when you look at this giant massif. It was actually surrounded by gravel and sand and dirt and grass, buried all the way up to its neck, to the firing positions. But they didn't uncover it just, to show us. Although that's really what they did. This is what the naked bunker looked like. That's the reason why we can see it. This was not a wall. It's fun to see here again. They actually dug it out. Dug it out by mistake, but they dug it out just the same. What's interesting about this place particularly is that here, before the wood, they had also camouflaged, put a plate here of wood so they couldn't see how thick the walls actually were. And the entrance. But here you see again some serious rebar.
Original inscriptions part, but there were more. It's painted over. I don't know why they painted over. There was some one before.
Oh yeah.
These were longer stalagmites.
Yeah, they do get annoying, don't they? And how often do you get to see an original Panzerplatten? Although this is only 4 centimeters thick, and if we've seen before, they do come in a bit thicker than that. This was for the close defense or rear guard. There's also one for the door. Lights, phones, ventilation. And it works too. Let's see how they filled all this. See how they filled all this up with just an amazing amount of cool gear, helmets, grenades, shells, things you really don't see. And here, they don't mind if you pick them up and play with them. That's a damn good reason to come visit this place. Just saying. There's a staircase down to the 2nd level. We're gonna go have a look there. All right, now we are in a real Pomeranian line fort. And what makes that so damn cool is that this is authentic as you can possibly make it. So now I can tell you how everything in here worked. This was, as you can tell, the commander's office, where he had his radio communication with the outside forts. He would have a speaking tube, Sprachrohr, to the positions upstairs, and through here he would pass orders to the radio room next door. And you see the lid on the ventilation that is actually here, which is really, really cool. They have an amazing amount of authentic, real equipment in here, so I can finally show you what things will really look like. And Belüftung. And you even have a little close defensive port that'll be looking down the stairs. Now, let's go have a look next door into the radio room. This is where the radio room was. This, granted, is an American radio, not the Siemens that it would have been, but you can't have everything you want. Radio would have been sitting here, well connected, and here the messages from the commander's office would come. And there's a lot of spares and a lot of parts, and it's so authentic in here, which is what I passionately love about what they did here. Attachment for the walls, and all the bits and pieces that are sitting in here are authentic. Most of them are from here. The ones who are not, they're still authentic and they're found in the general area. So here you had the kitchen room. You have some of the canteens and effects that was found here. And something that's very rare is the water container. This held the water for the fort. It has suffered a bit of a dent. That very well had something to do with when they tried to demolish this and the roof sort of caved in. So the whole bunker is a little crooked, but that's all right, because the scrappers didn't get this for the iron, and that is amazing. Every one of the bunkers, you just see the water tank missing, but sometimes we see a little bit of this bar sticking out from the wall. But here it is. So, moving on to the next. Here you have two storerooms that are full of stuff that is stored. That has nothing to do with what I'm going to show you. Now in here, you have a whole lot of jerry cans. This is where the diesel tank was, with the fuel for the fort generator. It was sitting on a sand floor in case of leakage, and there was a huge steel door right here that could be shut in case there was any problems. Because we really didn't want anything to catch fire that have to do with the fuel. And you go on here, down to the machine room. Right here, you see one of the emergency exits. And here you have one of the bedrooms with the authentic beds, at least. And you see the actual attachments, how they were attached to the metal, and the metal is screwed into the wood. Here they have a nice white wall, and you see all those destroyed, broken bunkers we go through. And you see either a little bit of the wood, or you see a slab where they should have been. And here you have again ventilation, you have light, you have a switch, and this is again authentic. And here you have the machine room. And the machine room has a few things that are really amazing. Unfortunately, the power plant is not here, but that's okay, because all these other bits and pieces are from this fort in this area. There was a water well here, right by the other emergency exit hatch. And here was the well. Here's the well, and these are the type of pipes that you would use to pull the water out of. Here are the swells that you would insert in the emergency exit. They would be sitting, see there's one sitting in place there. You would fill that up when the bunker was built, or before when the bunker was built, or sometimes after. You would put these swells in these grooves that we've seen, then you'll fill it up with sand from above. So in case there's an emergency, the crews can remove the swells, dig out the sand, and crawl out of the bunker if their actual exits were blocked. Something like this. And something else. I see here was the mount for the generator, but there's something else that's even cooler. You guys know what these are. These are batteries. These are the original batteries. Now this bunker only used the generator at night. The daytime it would connect to the city's power, and they would constantly keep batteries like these charged in case there was a complete power failure. They would still have power for lighting and radio. So these are authentic World War II batteries that lived in bunkers like this. And this bunker was built in 1935. And it is just an amazing thing to see. So here you have the other emergency exit. And here, something you also don't ever see. These are the actual toilets that belonged in bunkers like this. 1935 German bunkers. And here you have the Polish World War II toilet. And something else is really cool. Here's the sink sitting on the floor right now. It used to be sitting here behind the towel, but it's the original sink for this bunker, just like the light and the text on the wall here. Starting to see why I really, really like what these guys did. And here's something else that will absolutely blow you away. Besides the equipment that comes from this area, the windmills, bunker built on the windmill. They have the waterworks here. But what is really cool is this, that I'm kind of hoping one day I can show you. They built this bunker on this house. They literally tore the house down, built the bunker, and rebuilt the house on top of it with a little fighting position. So it was camouflaged. That's how they did it. And something else they have in this museum, they actually bothered to explain how the weatherproofing and the camouflage was done and could be repainted. Can you dig that?
Now, you can absolutely be certain that I did locate and find this corner building to take a look at the hidden bunker. They literally took the building apart in secrecy, constructed the bunker, and rebuilt the house on top. That's just amazing.
And of course you know what this is. Now there's something else besides the thoroughly authentic feel of this place. Here you have a collection of authentic armored doors, and they're all real. They're all rescued from this area. They're heavy-duty doors. You see one of the latches as it's supposed to look, and this is what it looked like after it was demolished. I have one of the original slides here. And you all know my favorite screws, the bolts that you'd use to attach the domes with. There's a medium one here. This is the head of the large one. Give you an idea how deep and thick these were. And this was where the officers would stay. And again, you have the officers' beds and something else. You had the electrical heater. These bunkers were heated by electrical, not by the traditional bunker stove. It wouldn't do it much hotter than 12, 13 degrees, but one could always hope that if there's enough people in here, there's some 40 people working in this bunker, it would be a little warmer. But here, electrical heating, very little heater. But it's a small room for 4 people. So, theoretically, it should be fine. Right? Here's another one of the little bunker stoves here. Here's something else that's really cool. Here's this. Ventilation. And it works. And it's original. How often you see that? Right? How often do you see an original ventilation that works in one of these bunkers? So this was how the Pomeranian was. It was put together using the waterways, designed in the early 30s, conceptualized before Hitler took power. This is a rather large B-Werk. No tunnels in this area. Let's go upstairs. I'll show you how the intended defense of this area was laid out. There's also a lot of weapons up here, which is really cool. Now you see this bunker has suffered. It was demolished. Well, attempted to. The Panzerplatten, steel plates, still here. I'm just gonna say, you know how I don't really like museums, but I like this place because they just filled it up with stuff that's real. That's one of the firing positions. Over there would be the Panzerturm. Fortunately, it's not there, but they rebuilt it. You get a feel for the size. There's the other speaking tube from the commander's office. Well, we did have a long conversation about what this long thing here is. We talked about it because no one really seems to know. But and these guys, of course, all volunteers. There was a bunker sitting here in town about to be destroyed. But this is big. You might get the feel of the room here. There's probably a wall missing, let's just face it, from the demolition. But this is a big bunker. This is more roomy, more spacious. And this is the inside of the Panzerturm. 3 windows. And here is the fighting position. Had MGs here as direction of the expected enemy, which initially were the Poles, and then it became the Russians. And you sort of see how the explosion lifted the roof off its mountings. And like I said, they have tons of weapons here. If you want to come touch and play with them, go for it. All the signs, all the gear they passed here. This is a good bunch of people. They did a lot of work here. Yeah, I noticed the room is a little crooked.
Window explosion, it lifted out the whole roof.
Yeah. And I think it misplaced a wall too, here or there.
These bars exposed, you pull out.
And what's interesting, this rebar is thicker than what you see in one of the other positions down here.
Bro, that's what they were.
Yeah.
I don't see the one from here.
Yeah, it just pulled everything. And I think it separated a couple of walls. There used to be a couple of walls missing too, I think.
A couple of walls missing.
I think it's a very big room for, there used to be a wall somewhere. There would have been a wall here, wouldn't it? Like at least a doorway. Yeah, there would have been a, this would have been, I think this would have been a walkway. Interesting part is there was also the steel doors, and there was a drum where they could control from the inside. French, I think. That's French.
Yeah, that's
you see the ridge there, yeah.
These are Russian, probably Polish, Russian.
Yeah.
This one I don't know. But the Wehrmacht ones, they the worst. They butchered most. These are the best condition. They don't have any better one here. These are Russians. These are. This is not German. This is Polish, I would say.
Yeah.
Russian.
Yep.
Anything Wehrmacht, they don't have better condition than. Better condition than these. Did you see any better one?
No. I mean, I guess it also depends a little bit on where they were found.
Yeah, but I don't remember there wasn't anyone. Oh yeah, these are the best ones. They have these are the best condition. Okay.
Yeah, they're in good shape.
That's not the best, but Could be the better ones. That means these are original.
It's a pretty damp neighborhood too.
They're
In the middle of nowhere, there's a small defensive position for some strange, interesting reason. Because the entrance is not out there. Well, a firing port, basically.
Yeah, that's plastic. Oh, that was about Polish army, you said?
Now, Brothers War was about...
Now, not far from this bivouac, there is the first of these expertly disguised observation points, hidden in a cemetery. This was the observation point for a large bunker complex nearby, guarding the waterways here, the bridge crossing into what was then Poland. Today, it's all Poland.
Honestly, this looks...
There was a cemetery graveyard.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, this looks a lot more like a cemetery. This is the shelter. This is an air raid shelter in the cemetery. I don't exactly know what that means.
And it was used to observation of the bridge nearby through the river.
Okay. I have to see the shelter. We gotta find the way in. That's just too interesting. Having an underground shelter in an old cemetery. I mean, this is an old cemetery. I don't even see any of the headstones. Do we know who built this?
No, I'm looking for some information. It's from the Second World War, so I think German.
Really? Second World War?
Yes, one guy writes something like this, but it's just opinion. But don't you think that it can be part of this Pomeranian scientist?
Come in here, take a look at this. To look at how ornate this was. And the even pillars in the corner.
It's not a chapel to this snake.
That's what I keep thinking. This is really fancy. Plus, the bridge is behind us and the door is pointing to the bridge. So I'm just saying, if you're going to build something to defend and fight this way, you're not going to open your door right out to the enemy. Unless you're in Czechia. So, but okay, it doesn't mean that it wasn't used as an observation. I mean, it would be perfect. Camouflage. It's a chapel in a cemetery. That happened during World War I quite a lot, actually. So. All right, I see where this morning's going. Women in the morning. No? Okay. All right.
Okay.
You meet me?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, it's one room full of mosquitoes. We've heard that song before. I mean, this was a chapel. A ventilated chapel, okay. With a broken staircase. Actually, not a bad place to observe enemy, truly. This is very ornate. This, I could see that little chapel being used for observation towards the bridge out here. Originally fenced in nicely, little graveyard, little cemetery. There'll be very little reason for it to Oh, found it. Well, I found something. So what is this thing? Well, I hope you don't have an air raid in the middle of the night and have to run down here, because that would just be messy. However, I see steel reinforcement, heavy steel door, and if I'm not all mistaken, there's an observation dome right in front of that pillar. So, it's muddy, but not bad.
Yeah.
Holy crap, it'll stick.
Oh no.
Oh, son of a bitch. How the fuck would you get people in here? So you have spark oil. So there's a speaking tube that leads to the bunker somewhere. Here's the steel dome. An observation tower. This is old. This is old. Oh, you stand away, of course. Oh, bugs. See what you can see. Observation. So this was clearly military. Now it's occupied by spiders and mosquitoes that are now both living in my hair. This is an old steel dome. I don't see any manufacturer's marks, but we know it's German. And this might even been close defensive for the bunker. This is both an observation and close defense. And there, Beluftung, air, ventilation. And here was a little chair for the dude to sit on. Baujahr 1939. What does this say? 1934. 1934. No. Yes, of course, 1934. Defense is built towards Poland. Okay. All right, that was cool. Ow. That wasn't cool. Alright, I ate a lot of mosquitoes in there. That was kind of... see the little arm over there for the seat. Okay. That's probably where the ventilation will come out. Alright, let's take a look at what he's guarding. This is absolutely brilliant. Put a little observation dome in there. Built one of the, looked like one of the original pillars on top from the chapel, from the cemetery. No one would notice. Dude sitting here watching the Brit crossing behind me, but he's firing behind me. There's a defensive position down below in this direction, so there must be a tunnel underneath me. This is not the Odewaardeburg, the east wall position. This is a different section. This would have been new 1934, and this one would have been. And then they just made it part of the cemetery wall, so nobody would notice. Brilliant. However, where's the tunnel? This looked like World War I barbed wire holder, so the area was probably fenced in. And I don't think the corpses are running around at night. This is absolutely brilliant. Over a field and a bridge right here. But where's the damn tunnel? Having sort of pieced it together, because right here in front of the cemetery is the very weak last remains of a zigzagging running trench that's running up that way. And in front of the observation, down here is a firing parapet that leads into probably a room that was accessible by the trench. So somewhere under here would have been very World War I style. A little entrance, and the trench leads away that way, and it leads behind me. So they put up a steel observation dome watching over the field with a trench in front of it. That's very World War I. Yeah, see, that's the trench in front of this. So they did use the chapel, and that's probably why it's not there anymore. Brilliant. This looks like a mounting for pole generator. There wouldn't be a generator sitting out here unless there was a house over it. So there are some cement remnants of stuff out here in the forest as well. Trench runs up here in front. I got a date on it. No, there would be a plaque on here.
Yeah.
I really wanted to see the date of the cemetery.
Nearby is one of the somewhat more disassembled B-Werks. It will at least give us an idea of how and from what they were constructed.
The construction here started in 1934, and if you look at the rebar, tell you, these early bunkers were so heavily fortified with rebar. It's amazing to see, because the later Regelbauten in the Atlantic Wall, the rebar was not nearly as thick. They started this construction in 1934, and of course, after the Polish campaign ended, they stopped building. Oh, this is cool. And they didn't start again until 1944, when the Russians were approaching. This was a B-Werks, which means there should be at least 2 levels. And I guess that is a level below, since this floor seems to be hovering. What an interesting way. Can you hold that for a minute before so I can do something stupid without actually entirely falling? When they blew this, I think I know where they put the explosives. Something really well right here in the middle that's might even lifted it of the foundation, but I think this is the second floor down, and there might even be more. There were, what were there, 28 different positions? 28 positions within these 4 kilometers?
Or 25 something.
There was a lot of them, and of course 90% of them were destroyed after the war. It's funny, we see this speaking tube. You talk into this. And that was the same as in the cemetery. There was a speaking tube. Who were they talking to in the cemetery? There was a speaking tube by the observation dome. Who were they talking to? This looks like it's been cemented up. But it could also be the original, just not painted. And wood attachments in the wall to store things. This actually looks like a shelf unit. What a cool thing. I'm dying to get in here. There might have been, I'll know when I get into it where the positions were. There would, oh yes, here was a well. Here was a dome well, or since this was early, probably a half dome, a Panzerturm, because I see the anchors. That's one anchor down there. Look around it first, and then I crawl into it, and then I sort of know where things should be. But look at the thickness, though. This is not the thickness of the roof. Remember, there's rooms inside this. They're just sort of, you know, a little crooked, airborne type of rooms. This sort of resembles a slightly smaller version of the bunker we saw at Ludendorff. There's an anchor. Looks like an anchor coming out horizontally. Another one over there. There was a Panzerplatten here. That's what there was. There's a steel armored plate here. And that is probably... that better have been a rear defensive position because it's facing away from the front. It better have been. So the door, main door, would have been here. And the first room we saw, there was probably an armored plate there as well. And the fighting front is on the other side of the bunker. Alright, here's the roof. Upside down. Flipped over here, and that is the entrance. Right there. So that would have been defended by that armored plate. And I swear it looks like there's an armored plate there as well. Wow, interesting. What an interesting place. This is just different than the other east wall bunkers. Of course, this also started earlier. That almost looks like a brick. No, it can't be. There's rebar in it. Alright, let me get in here somehow. Small door here at the entrance with a firing position right there. It's like I don't really need light here. Ow. Well. There's a bit of the hallway missing. I don't know. Something happened to the floor. That's interesting. So that's that look like shelves over there. That'll be shelves for the shells, I would imagine, since there would be a firing position right there. Alright, the way in is, I guess, from the other side. Huh. So here, actually the light is quite good in here. So right there would be on the side of the armored plate, and there's a hell of a beam of steel beam sitting right there. That's thick. And then this would be a room, and there would be probably shells for the shells there, and there's an adjacent rooms on both sides that I'm not sure I can get to because, well, something happened to the floor. And there's a lot of writing on the wall. I like this.
Would you like light?
No. Actually, this looks kind of good. Yeah. It's just on the bottom of what I can get away with, light-wise. The official entrance. Look, it's even covered by a little rounded steel plate there. Ventilation pipe, I'm imagining. Licht haben bei Haus verboten. I would imagine that means don't have any light here. Don't light up when the door's open. So I can't read the last part because it's missing. Very cool. Here was another armored plate. So now I'm counting 3 armored plates on this. 4 actually. So this was certainly heavily defended from the rear. And I know I see 1 dome. And when I said this was an easier way in, I mean, you know, easy as in... I woke up all the mosquitoes. Jump, run. As my birthday's coming up, could you please all send bug spray? Steel door. That steel door probably once might have been attached to that one. Is there a room in there? Well, ooh, there's a room in there. We'll have a look at that. Hallelujah. Well, and when I say there was a room in here, I mean that in the most optimistic sense of the word room, of course. maybe that was the emergency exit. I would say that would be a close defensive firing position. But wood in the walls, stand for equipment, separated room. What have we over here? This is really cool. You gotta get the number of this puppy, see if I can find a map of what was in it. Sorry, it gets a little unsteady in here. So there's one floor above. There's a one armor plate. Would have been pipes, rebar running throughout the walls. Look how thick this is. That was the door, entry door up there. That's the other one of those steel beams. That's a serious beam. That's not for kids. I don't know what beam would be for kids, but let's not go there. That would be confusing. Alright. Now you can really see what happened. The whole room, I was just there. The whole room just lifted. Just interesting looking at all this decay. And here's the calcium running down the rebar. Why is that so when they blew this up, it lifted and shook good 30 feet off the rebar of cement. Of course, there's everything in here: sanitary ammunition, firing positions, sleeping quarters, everything you'd find expect to find in a bunker like this. Here's a rounded corner. I don't exactly know why that would be a rounded corner. See, the wood on the walls where the beds would have been attached are still there, in good shape. 28 bunkers in this 4-kilometer stretch, and most of them are destroyed. This is actually, believe it or not, the one in the best shape I've seen so far. It's kind of scary, isn't it? But it looks different than the east wall. It also looks different than the west wall. Although that hospital I saw with Marcus may not. Well, actually, it made it. Okay, so here must have been. There's an anchor sitting there. There's the other anchor. Here would have been a Panzerturm over this. This is probably the wall that, no wait, this is the floor, but the Panzerturm would have let out over this lip, and probably, it's a little hard to discern, honestly. These rungs kind of confuse me because they go all the way up, and I don't know why that would be. This was the back wall. That was the back wall to the room I'm standing in. That there would be the back of this. Looks like there's a bricked up. No. It's just an indent of something. It looks like a bricked up hallway, honestly, but with wood and everything, I doubt it. Okay. Oh, this is very cool. Absolutely very interesting to see. But see here, this was the 4th armored plate. When have you ever seen a fort, a bunker, with 4 armored plates and an old Panzerturm, at least one? And this was the position the church cemetery observation with the trenches down there, and out here would eventually come the Russians. And on January 28th, they broke the line. And here we are not far from the Pomeranian position, where there's a little ghost town. It's on the other side of the river, so I honestly at this point do not know anything about it, except here is a foundation of a wall. It's little bits of stones sitting in here in the woods. Here next to the ghost town, opposite the Pomeranian position, is another little waterlock, and it does look surprisingly destroyed in a blown up sort of sense. This river would spill into the river over there, of which the position was overlooking, so this may have, this looks 20th century construction to me. It sort of does, doesn't it? This looks kind of new, doesn't it? There's a little house here next to it. I mean, it may have been destroyed, it may have collapsed. Still working, water's still running. There's no bilge here that I can see. I don't know what happened to this, because I don't know what it is. It has a tire in it, so obviously it has something to do with World War II. Here was something mounted. These are mounts for machinery of some sorts. So this was a machine house. Maybe there was a small generator. Water is flowing. That's very hard to tell. There's a well-built house, possibly with a wooden upper structure, because there's no bricks lying around. More information is needed.
There are more German bunkers along this particular line, and sadly they are all quite destroyed. Fortunately, that is not an indication that they all are. I have found a lot of Pommern Stellungs that are in exceptionally good shape, including trenches and all.
We're not far from the river here, from the old Polish-German border. They really blew these up very, very well. There isn't in here. Wow. This is well destroyed, isn't it? You know, I'm looking at the rebar. This rebar is smaller. Look at this. This rebar is not nearly as thick. That tells me that this was a newer construction. Here was close to fence. There was a steel plate here for the entrance. Heavy beam over here. That would probably be into the underground. This seems to be buried in a hill. Don't know how accessible it is. Let's see if we can see. has more inside walls. That's the original entrance over there. So, can't get in there. Well, there's a tire, so you know how this goes. Things you don't do, kids, is make jumps to grab small pieces of metal to hold you. Oh, son of a bitch. Wow, there's not much left here. So this is the rear entrance over there. So inside the hill there might be a little more, another floor. I don't know what work this was. It doesn't look big enough to be a B-Werk. Yeah. Here's the parapet inside. The close defensive position right there. And the entrance. Yeah, that was guarding. Yeah. But again, you see the rebar. It is not as thick. Which is really interesting. So they really did progress their building techniques over the years of construction. The vent is not really very big either. Yeah, there's what's left of the covering position for the entrance there, the little steel plate over there. There's a little tunnel or doorway that leads down that's covered. There might have been 2 floors.
Now, after I have been so fortunate to visit a fully reconstructed west wall bivacs as well, so soon we can see the difference. And also, I have visited a fully reconstructed Molotov line and a fully reconstructed Polish pre-World War II bunker, and even a Regelbauten. So after it all, I can show you all these fortified lines, bunker construction, how they functioned and operated. I'll put it together in one very long episode so we can compare all of the Central European main bunkers, their operations and contents. So there.
Behind me is Werner von Braun's first test stand. Down the road is Dietmar's nuclear reactor. Over there is the Maginot Line and all its amazing forts. I'm visiting them all and I'm bringing them to you. So I really appreciate you like, follow, and share what I'm doing, trying to document all these important historical locations. And if you feel like you want to watch more pictures or documents that I use for these, go to lostbattlefields.com. And if you feel like helping me out with my travels, because gasoline and travel and airfare is expensive, my PayPal is there, protectionserviceint.com. You are more than welcome, but you don't have to. I appreciate all your support and all your help, and I love seeing these locations, and I love bringing them to you.